Have you noticed this phenomenon? The smarter a person is, the less they enjoy noise in crowds. The wiser a person is, the more they prefer solitude. When others gather for parties, they don't go. When others chat enthusiastically, they stay quiet. People may think they are aloof or indifferent, but in truth, their hearts are exceptionally calm, clear, and at ease. Why is that? Because they've long understood a simple truth. Where there are many people, there is human drama. Where there are few people, there is natural harmony. Places full of people are full of human affairs. Crowded places are far from peaceful. The I Ching teaches, those of the same voice resonate, those of the same energy attract. People gather with their kind, things group according to their nature. When a person's inner state reaches a certain level, they will naturally be drawn to certain kinds of people and will deliberately avoid other kinds of energy. The more intelligent a person is, the clearer their mind becomes, and with clarity comes the ability to read others. They've seen polite hospitality that is empty and filled with ulterior motives, as well as the calculations hidden behind flattering words. They understand that real kindness isn't expressed in words, it is demonstrated through actions. That's why they dislike noise and aren't eager to please others. They'd rather be alone than force themselves into groups where they don't belong. Some call such people proud for not blending in, but that is a misunderstanding. It's not that they look down on others, it's that they've simply seen human nature clearly. Human nature is mostly practical and only partly sincere. Knowing this so well, wise people learn to restrain and maintain boundaries. They understand that keeping a certain distance between people preserves respect. Confucian teachings say, a gentleman's relationships are mild like water, but long-lasting, calm yet sincere, and warm in a gentle way. This describes how a truly noble person relates to others. Their connections are calm and enduring like water, simple on the surface, but deep and warm at the core. That is how wise people behave socially. They are neither overly enthusiastic nor extremely cold. They simply understand the importance of keeping their heart pure. Only then can their relationships be close and genuine. I once met an elderly man who had many friends when he was young. During holidays, his home was always filled with guests. But when he reached middle age, he began declining invitations. Others said, "You've become antisocial." He simply smiled and replied calmly, "I haven't changed. I've awakened." He later said to me, "When I was young, I thought having many friends meant I had connections. Later, I realized no matter how many connections you have, none of them matter as much as having peace of mind." His life shifted from noise to silence, from seeking outwardly to cultivating inwardly. That inner peace was not loneliness, it was the maturity of wisdom. The I Ching has a saying, "Only when one becomes still can one find stability. Only with stability can one think clearly, and only with clear thought can one gain wisdom." In other words, a person must first quiet their mind to feel grounded. Once the heart is steady, the thoughts become clear, and when thoughts are clear, wisdom naturally reveals itself. Smart people know that socializing brings noise, while wisdom grows in silence. They would rather sit under a lamp reading a good book or reflect on an old story than waste time at banquets making small talk with people they cannot truly connect with. They are not antisocial, they simply know that time is limited and energy must be conserved. The Dao De Jing says, "Those who are sparing with words live naturally." People who genuinely possess wisdom speak little but see clearly. They avoid excessive talking because they understand that too many words create confusion. When someone talks endlessly, always wanting to express, explain, or justify. It often reveals that their heart is still unsettled. Wise people understand that behind social excitement lies countless comparisons and desires. Some smiles are for personal gain. Some compliment others merely to win them over. The wise see through this instantly. Therefore, they do not argue, they do not debate, and they do not flatter. They would rather remain silent, because silence is a form of cultivation. Confucian teachings say, a noble person stays within the role that is right for them and does not seek to enter circles that are not theirs. This means a noble person acts within the scope of their responsibility and does not chase after groups or circles that do not truly belong to them. So, when intelligent people avoid excessive socializing, it is not because they are introverted, but because they understand that every circle has its boundaries. Instead of exhausting themselves trying to fit into every social group, they devote their energy to self-cultivation to protect their own energy and inner peace. They understand that when you are strong enough, you don't need to please anyone. When you are clear enough inside, you naturally attract the right people. This is personal cultivation. A young man once asked a wise master, "Why does the number of friends I have shrink as I grow older?" The master smiled and said, "Because as you climb higher, the wind gets stronger. Fewer people can keep pace with you." As wise people advance, their hearts grow closer to what is essential. They no longer chase temporary excitement or momentary victories. They know that the most important thing in life is not how many people like you, but how clear-minded you remain, whether you can live clearly and awake. The I Ching says, "A noble person stands firm in independence without fear." This means a true noble person dares to be alone, because solitude is not loneliness, but a form of inner dialogue with oneself. Only in stillness can a person hear the voice of their soul. Only in silence can they see themselves clearly. Wise people cherish the time they spent alone. They reflect in quietness, grow in solitude, and cultivate themselves in silence. A master once said, "The greatest fear for a cultivator is not loneliness, but being lost in the crowd." If a person depends too much on groups or cares too much about others' opinions, they easily lose their true self. The wise know that dependence breeds confusion. The more you rely on others, the more imbalanced you become. The more you try to please others, the more you become lost. So they choose to step back, not out of withdrawal, but out of self-awareness and self-reflection. They understand, when the heart is clear, the world becomes spacious. When one fulfills their own role, everything naturally falls into place. The Dao De Jing says, "Knowing contentment brings peace. Knowing one's own limits brings safety." Socializing isn't bad, but excessive interaction disturbs the mind, drains energy, and harms the spirit. By stepping back from excess and avoiding unnecessary gatherings, wise people protect their energy and maintain inner peace. This is cultivation and self-discipline. Many people fear being alone and constantly seek company, but wise people have learned to befriend with solitude, because they know solitude is not emptiness, it is the soul's clean ground. The I Ching teaches that a noble person constantly strives for self-improvement and self-strengthening. Truly intelligent people understand what real self-strengthening means. Their self-discipline is not about competing with others, it is about competing with themselves. They invest their time in growth, not in pleasing others. They know that true cultivation isn't measured by how many people you can socialize with, but how much inner clarity you can maintain. The wiser a person is, the more they understand this. If the heart is not calm, too many words are useless. If the mind is not clear, too many people only create more confusion. They value a few sincere friendships over many superficial ones. They would rather have a few genuine companions than force themselves to fit into groups that don't align with them. The ancient teaching says, when water is too clear, no fish remain. When a person is too discerning, they have no companions. Intelligent people see things too clearly, so naturally they are not easily drawn into drama. Their hearts are not cold, they simply understand deeply the weight and lightness of human relationships. So they choose not to fight, not to disturb, and not to force. Their world is not noisy, yet it has its own quiet beauty. Their calm life may not be flashy, but it is steady and enduring. They no longer demand to be understood, because they know those who truly understand you need no explanation, and for those who don't, explanations won't help. Cultivation means letting the heart return to its original clarity. Wise people do not depend on external validation, they rely on inner calm to sustain their lives. Thus, their reduced desire for socializing is not avoidance, it is elevation. In solitude, they purify themselves and remain awake. In awakening, they cultivate the heart. In cultivation, they gain clarity. This is the deepest kind of intelligence. People who seem unsocial are in fact aligning themselves with the natural rhythms of life. They understand the value of balance. Too much outward expression dissipates a person's energy. The universe operates through yin and yang. Yin is inward and quiet, it gathers and stores. Yang is outward and active, it releases and acts. If you remain constantly in an outward, expansive mode, you will eventually become exhausted. Only by knowing how to nourish yang within yin, by storing strength in stillness, can one sustain their destiny. Therefore, intelligent people who avoid excessive socializing are actually nourishing their life force. They understand the art of conserving energy and the long-term strategy of preservation. Their solitude is warm, not cold. Their quietness is not emptiness, but fullness. The saying, "clear water is silent," points to this truth. A truly insightful person is quiet because they are clear. The wiser a person becomes, the more they understand how precious personal energy is. The I Ching says, "The greatest virtue of heaven and earth is the life-giving energy, qi." The movement of heaven and earth is sustained by qi. A person's life is also supported by qi. If your energy flows smoothly, your heart will be at ease. If your heart is at ease, your destiny will naturally unfold smoothly. But what is socializing? It is the exchange of energy between people. If you spend time with someone who has upright, wholesome energy, you will feel warm and calm. But if you are around someone with impure intentions, you will feel drained and suffocated. Intelligent people are extremely sensitive to this. They don't need anyone to teach them. Just sitting beside someone for a moment is enough for them to sense whether that person's energy is peaceful or chaotic, bright or heavy. This is why intelligent people avoid excessive socializing, not out of pride, but out of energy preservation. They know that exchanging just a few sentences with someone whose heart is restless can disturb their own energetic balance. Just one night of social obligations, if filled with competition, comparison, and hidden agendas, can completely consume the inner peace they spent the entire day cultivating. That is why they gradually learn to speak less and avoid unnecessary conversation. It's not because they dislike the world, but because they are nourishing their inner life. Truly intelligent people understand balance. They know that whenever anything goes to excess, energy scatters. Whenever enthusiasm becomes too intense, it inevitably breaks. There was once an elderly gentleman. When he was young, he was outgoing, talkative everywhere he went, and could chat with anyone. But after he turned 50, he became increasingly silent. Someone asked him, "Are you tired?" He smiled and said, "I'm not tired. I've understood. When I was young, I thought the more people you knew, the better. Later I realized the more people you know, the easier it is for your heart to be pulled around. It took me decades to understand that the best state in life is having things you refuse to do. Now I'd rather drink an extra pot of tea than go listen to pointless noise." This sentence reveals the fundamental reason intelligent people are not keen on socializing. They cherish their own mental energy and respect the boundaries of others' lives. The Dao De Jing says, "Stillness is the root of all restlessness." Truly wise people may appear to be doing nothing, but what they are actually preserving is stillness. They understand that movement brings risk, while stillness is the foundation. Most people in the world like to show off relationships, show off resources, show off intelligence. But intelligent people walk the opposite path. They understand hiding your sharpness is cultivation. Hiding your heart is wisdom. They know that life is not about how much you can say, but how much you can hold within. There is a story. A young man once asked a sage, "I want to become a wise person. Should I socialize more?" The sage did not reply. Instead, he took the young man up a mountain. When they reached a spring in the valley, the sage pointed to the water and said, "Drink." The young man drank. The water was clear and sweet. Then the sage stirred the spring with a stick. "Drink again," he said. The young man drank once more. This time the water was bitter and cloudy. The sage said, "This is what socializing is like. When the heart is still, like clear spring water, it is pure and transparent. Once it is disturbed, you can no longer taste its sweetness." Intelligent people understand this principle. They would rather remain pure like clear water than become murky like a disturbed stream. The I Ching says, "When the dragon has not yet reached its time, it must remain hidden." This is especially important for intelligent people. They know what should not be said, they do not say. What should not be revealed, they do not show. Their quietness is not withdrawal, it is stored strength. They do not avoid socializing because they are reclusive, but because they choose to use their time to cultivate their mind and character. They understand real power does not come from being present everywhere, but from building depth where no one sees. There was once a young man who had just achieved early success in his career. He enjoyed befriending prominent figures. At one banquet, he noticed an elderly senior who remained silent the entire night. He felt confused. Why was he so cold? Later, he learned that this quiet old man was actually the most respected person at the gathering. While others competed to speak, he simply smiled and said nothing. His stillness alone commanded deep respect. The I Ching says, "The gentleman remains vigilant and diligent all day." A true gentleman appears calm on the outside, but is alert within. They know that silence is not the absence of speech, it is what gives speech its weight. The older intelligent people become, the more they discover the true nature of socializing. Most socializing is exchange, but true spiritual connection is resonance. Exchange is mutual taking. Resonance is mutual fulfillment. Most social interactions revolve around taking. True companionship is built on resonance. Intelligent people gradually see things as they truly are. That is why they would rather have a few genuine friends than countless shallow social interactions. What they seek is purity of heart, not the noise of social circles. Wise people avoid excessive socializing because they understand that the spirit must be preserved and the qi must be gathered. Only by holding on to stillness can one hold on to blessings. Those who constantly seek stimulation in lively crowds may look happy on the surface, but they are actually trapped in competitiveness. Those who nourish their hearts in solitude may appear lonely, but in truth, they are the ones who are truly strong. This is the difference between the wise and the ordinary. The ancient teaching says, "To live among good people is like entering a room filled with orchids." Wise people do not reject all socializing. They simply choose their company carefully. They know that different circles create different destinies. Walk with the wise, and your heart becomes clear. Walk with the kind, and your blessings grow. They do not seek quantity, only quality. One sincere friend is worth more than 10 insincere acquaintances. Confucian teachings say, when a person returns to a state of true balance, the whole universe supports them. In other words, when someone stays calm, steady, and disciplined, life naturally aligns for them, and things begin to unfold smoothly. Wise people understand this balanced energy deeply. That is why their lives may look simple, but are actually rich. They may seem slow, but they are steady. They do not fight, they do not rush, they do not flaunt. Yet on the journey of life, they are often the ones who travel the farthest and end with the greatest fulfillment. I once met an elderly practitioner at a mountain temple. He appeared incredibly serene. I asked him, "Why do you stay on the mountain all year? Don't you feel lonely?" He smiled and said, "I am not alone. I am communicating with all things. The birds sing, the wind blows, the water flows, the trees cast their shadows. They are all my friends. If I speak with people, I only argue with words. If I speak with nature, I gain wisdom." His words stayed with me for a long time. It turns out that the highest level of socializing is not the noise between people, but the silent harmony between oneself and the universe. The Dao De Jing says, "Man follows the earth follows heaven, heaven follows the Tao follows nature." The wise gradually align themselves toward nature. They do not force others to understand them, nor do they cling to being liked. They know that all relationships are shaped by fate. When people are meant to gather, they will. When they are meant to part, there is no resentment. Thus, they remain calm among people without becoming noisy, and peaceful in the world without becoming attached. That gentle wisdom is the highest stage of cultivation. They know that all excitement eventually settles into stillness. All gatherings eventually turn into solitary journeys. Only a heart as calm as water can see life clearly. Only solitude can forge true virtue and carry a person peacefully through life. The smarter a person is, the more they understand one truth. Real growth happens in solitude. Real wisdom is born in silence. Confucian teachings say one who is sincere becomes self-accomplished. To accomplish oneself, one must first turn inward, and the inward path is inevitably a lonely one. The world's noise can excite you, but only solitude can awaken you. Intelligent people avoid excessive socializing not because they dislike, but because they understand. A person who never looks inward can never truly see themselves. They understand that socializing expands outward, but cultivation returns inward. The more mature the soul becomes, the more it walks inward. The I Ching says, when the world becomes tight and troubled, the wise step back. When everything around us grows chaotic and unsettled, truly wise people choose to withdraw for a while. Stepping back doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're gathering strength for an even greater rise later. The ancient teaching says, a gentleman hides his abilities within and acts only when the time is right. Intelligent people are exactly such gentlemen. They know how to keep their strength hidden. They understand that real strength does not lie in convincing others, but in remaining grounded within themselves. When everyone is showing off, they choose stillness. When crowds argue, they simply smile. They know that fighting back and forth only brings a momentary victory, but calming down brings a lifetime of peace. I once met a retired teacher. He had been outstanding in his younger years, with students all over the country, but in his later days, he moved into a small hut in the countryside and lived alone. Someone asked him, "How can you bear to leave the crowds?" He smiled and replied, "I spent my whole life teaching others. Now it is time to teach myself." Every morning he meditated, read the teachings of Confucius, recited the Dao De Jing, and occasionally practiced calligraphy or painting. He said, "When I was young, I talked about life's principles. Now I practice those principles in my heart." His serenity inspired deep respect. It turns out that the wiser a person becomes, the more they understand the meaning of solitude. Solitude is not turning away from people. It is staying connected to the natural order of life. It is a connection deeper than ordinary social interaction. The Dao De Jing says, truly powerful things don't make much noise, and truly profound qualities often appear simple or without obvious shape. The greater the wisdom, the quieter it becomes. The higher one's understanding, the less they feel the need to display it. Intelligent people are not fond of excessive socializing because they understand what truly matters is not expressed by the mouth, but held within the heart. The deepest kind of communication is not through words, but through resonance. They enjoy conversing with nature, listening silently to the sound of the wind and to the voice within their own hearts. They have discovered that the more a person talks, the more restless the mind becomes. But the calmer the heart, the clearer the world appears. The ancient teaching says, a true gentleman remains upright even when alone. What does it mean to be upright in solitude? It is not fear of loneliness. It is the ability to stay true to oneself even when no one is watching. If a person behaves morally only when others are watching, that is merely ritual. If they remain upright even when no one is around, that is virtue. This is why intelligent people gradually step away from excessive socializing. They are practicing self-discipline and are morally grounded even in solitude. They understand that true morality is not performed for others to see, but to remain at peace with one's own conscience. They would rather be misunderstood than lose the purity of their heart. The I Ching says, stillness nourishes the spirit, simplicity nourishes virtue. Wise people understand that stillness is the foundation for cultivating the heart, and simplicity is the method for cultivating virtue. So they speak less to calm the mind. They socialize less to protect their virtue. Because they know the more words, the more disputes, the more socializing, the more attachments. They do not want their hearts to be eroded by unnecessary noise. They would rather choose silence, even solitude, just to protect their authenticity. The ancient teaching says, small hermits hide in the mountains, great hermits hide in plain sight. Intelligent people do not need to physically leave society. Instead, they stay mentally clear while living within it. Amidst noise, they stay unmoved. In the face of temptation, they do not lose themselves. They do not escape the world. They simply stay true to themselves within it. This is a wisdom that engages with life, yet remains unstained by it. I once knew a businessman. In his youth, he was ambitious and constantly attending social events. Eventually, his health deteriorated and his mind became restless. One day, he suddenly realized, the hardest thing in life is not making money, it is keeping inner peace. From then on, he reduced his social activities. He planted flowers, brewed tea, and read books at home. He said, I discovered that the quieter a person becomes, the stronger their inner power grows. In the past, he relied on noise to prove his existence. Now he relies on silence to find himself. The Dao De Jing says, those who know contentment are rich. Those who know when to stop are wise. Intelligent people do not enjoy excessive socializing because they know when to stop. They understand that relationships beyond a certain point become burdens. Noise belongs to others. Stillness belongs to oneself. They are not tied down by social anxiety, nor exhausted by forced relationships. They would rather walk alone than please others against their will. Their world may be small, but it is genuine. It may be quiet, but it is powerful. The ancient teaching says, when balance and harmony are restored, the world falls into place and growth follows naturally. Intelligent people do not enjoy excessive socializing because they understand how to maintain inner balance and harmony. Their lives are neither extreme nor restless. Their hearts are neither noisy nor cold. They can stay clear-minded in solitude and find joy in being alone. They keep healthy boundaries with others while remaining kind to themselves. This is a quiet kind of beauty, a higher realm of living. I once asked an elderly professor, what is the greatest wisdom you've learned in this life? He smiled and replied, not competing, not arguing, not speaking too much. It looks like having no ability, yet it is the greatest ability. He said that when you can live quietly, you have mastered the rhythm of fate. Young people like to run. Middle-aged people learn to stop. Elderly people seek stillness. And now I understand, meditating quietly is the highest form of cultivation. His words were like a gentle breeze, clearing the dust from one's heart. Intelligent people train their minds to stay steady. Their hearts are not tied to worldly emotions. They cultivate a heart free from clinging and fear. They do not let emotions take control. They are free because they do not rely on external affirmation. They understand that the world changes like the wind, coming and going on its own. Human relationships rise and fall like the tides. When life becomes noisy, only those with deep wisdom step back to protect their inner calm. They are not rejecting people. They are practicing healthy boundaries. They are not afraid of solitude because they carry their own inner light. In the last line of the Dao De Jing, the sage does not accumulate. The more he gives, the more he has. Intelligent people do not avoid socializing out of selfishness. They simply change the way they give, from outward noise to inner light. They warm the world with their quietness. They inspire others with their wisdom. Their presence is like a lamp, like water, like a mountain, silent yet radiant, shapeless yet full of virtue. So the wiser someone becomes, the less they enjoy excessive socializing, not because they dislike people, but because they have awakened. They understand that the most important cultivation in life is not building more connections with others, but building a deeper connection with one's own heart. They understand that spending time pleasing others is far less valuable than spending time improving themselves. Seeking external validation is far less meaningful than seeking inner peace. When they finally hear their true self in silence, they become aligned with their own heart. That realization is not emptiness, it is the fullness of wisdom. In this life, the hardest thing to obtain is not intelligence, but clarity. Intelligence is a gift, but clarity is lifelong cultivation. The wiser a person becomes, the more they see that noise and liveliness make people lose themselves, while solitude brings true awakening. When someone has lived through enough, they no longer rush to express themselves, nor crave to be seen. They begin to appreciate silence, because silence brings them back to their truest self. Intelligent people understand that only when the heart is not pulled around by external distractions can life grow solid roots. Someone once asked, "Why do intelligent people like being alone?" In truth, this is not loneliness, it is the cultivation of one's vital energy, qi. The I Ching says, "A noble person builds life through self-cultivation." To cultivate the self, one must first cultivate the heart. To cultivate the heart, one must first calm the qi. Too much socializing scatters the qi. Too much talking drains the spirit. When you spend your days greeting, entertaining, and responding to others, the more your smiles increase, the more your sincerity decreases. The more time you spend dealing with people, the more exhausted you become. Wise people learn to protect their inner energy. They do not reject others, but they maintain boundaries. They are not afraid of solitude, because their heart carries light. Smart people gradually understand tranquility is not escape, it is a higher form of self-management. They protect their inner energy because they know once a person's qi becomes chaotic, their destiny becomes scattered. An ancient Chinese medical text teaches, when still, the spirit is stored, when restless, energy is depleted. This single line explains the choice of intelligent people. They love quietness because it safeguards their spirit. They do not allow their hearts to be swayed by others' emotions. They do not allow their time to be consumed by meaningless noise. They do not reject people, but they understand boundaries. They are not afraid of solitude because their heart holds light. True intelligence is not speaking beautifully in front of others, but being able to live peacefully with oneself in quiet. Truly intelligent people may appear simple and ordinary on the outside, but their hearts are transparent and profoundly clear within, shining like a bright lamp. They may say nothing, yet they illuminate others. They do not chase social excitement because they know crowds trap the heart. The bigger the crowd, the more restless the mind becomes. They would rather spend time with flowers, wind, and trees than indulge in insincere interactions. In calmness, they cultivate virtue. In simplicity, they nourish the heart. In tranquility, they meet their true self. I once knew an elderly painter. In his youth, he traveled widely and sought fame with his art. In old age, he moved to the countryside and would sit all day facing a single tree, occasionally painting from morning till dusk. Someone asked him, "Don't you feel lonely?" He smiled and said, "The tree breathes and the wind speaks. How could I be lonely?" There is a profound state hidden in those words. When a person can sense all things in stillness, that is the awakening of wisdom. Wise people are not weary of the world. They simply understand the cost of noise and empty talk. Too much socializing disturbs the heart, and too many words create confusion and make a person lose authenticity. They would rather have fewer friends and more tranquility. The Dao De Jing says, "One who knows when to stop is safe." The reason intelligent people are not enthusiastic about socializing is that they understand when to stop. Life is like a boat. Load it too much, and it will sink. Too many relationships make the heart heavy. Too many obligations scatter the spirit. So they choose to let go. Let go of pointless comparisons. Let go of hollow excitement. Let go of unnecessary explanations. When they learn to let go, their hearts become lighter. Only those who are light can soar high. Only those who are quiet can go far. There is a story. A young man once asked a wise teacher, "Master, how can I make people like me?" The teacher replied with a question, "Why must everyone like you?" The young man had no answer. The teacher smiled and said, "When you stop trying to please others, those who truly resonate with you will naturally come close." This is the inner teaching of the wise. They avoid excessive socializing not out of arrogance, but because they refuse to flatter. They understand that real relationships are not built through effort, but through sincerity. The I Ching says, "Be humble like a gentleman. The greatest river flows quietly." The wiser a person becomes, the more humble they grow. They do not boast, they do not argue. Their silence is cultivation. Their humility is wisdom. They know that life is not about who speaks the most, but who sees the clearest. They choose quietness because they know that only in quietness can one hear the will of heaven. Once, someone asked Zhang Gufan, a prominent Chinese statesman, military leader, strategist, and scholar during the late Qing dynasty, "How do you view friendship?" He replied, "Friends should be sincere and not too many. Interactions should be calm, not noisy." Intelligent people dislike excessive socializing because they understand these two principles, sincerity and quietness. False friendships waste time. Real friendships are a form of cultivation. Thus, they would rather stay alone and wait for those whose souls resonate with theirs. They know that not all noise is worth joining, and not all silence means loneliness. The ancient teaching says, "True sincerity is the natural way the universe operates." In silence, wise people cultivate sincerity. They do not speak hollow or false words. They prefer silence over hypocrisy. They understand that too many words invite trouble. A quiet mouth reflects a steady heart. With every moment they refrain from speaking, they are refining their virtue. With every moment of quiet thought, they are growing in wisdom. The ancient teaching says, "Few words are noble, many words are cheap." Not because speech is unimportant, but because once words are spoken, like arrows, they cannot be taken back. A truly intelligent person knows when to keep their mouth closed, because they understand that excessive talking drains one's vital energy, and when energy is depleted, life itself is harmed. Their silence is a way of protecting their life force. I once knew a businessman who, in his youth, was extremely eloquent and could speak effortlessly wherever he went. But later in life, he became very quiet. Someone asked him, "You've changed." He replied, "Before, I made money with my mouth. Now I live my life with my heart." This sentence reveals the turning point of wisdom. People become quieter as they grow wiser, because they understand that words may bring benefits, but silence brings strength. The I Ching says, "A hidden dragon should not act." Those with great wisdom conceal their sharpness. They are never in a rush to show off or to argue. They understand that stillness is the greatest form of confidence. A person who can refrain from explaining or arguing is someone who carries inner light. Intelligent people choose to speak less because they know that true persuasion does not rely on words, it relies on virtue. Solitude is the training ground of the wise. In silence, they reflect on themselves. In quietude, they sort through their past. They turn loneliness into refinement and stillness into a teacher. They see clearly the warmth and coldness of human relationships and the impermanence of life. Thus they smile more calmly, live more clearly, and walk more steadily. Wise people reduce social interactions to return to their inner world. When they reach a certain level of cultivation, they become more compassionate, realizing that all beings suffer and that everyone has their own difficulties. They stop judging and arguing and instead offer quiet understanding and acceptance. Their quietness is no longer a defense, but an expression of compassion. The Dao De Jing says, "Great wisdom does not speak." True wisdom always rests quietly within silence. Those who are truly intelligent are not detached from the human world. They have simply understood it more deeply. They move from noise to tranquility, from restlessness to peace, from cleverness to wisdom. That clear, gentle inner light is the fruit of a lifetime of cultivation.